Hello, my mermaids and barnacle boys. My name is SpongeDrew, and welcome back to another video. I am back once again for being gone for probably about a week, and I do apologize for that. Quite busy with college classes, like I said in the past videos. But I'm still making videos whenever I have the free time to do so. So yeah, we are back once again with another book video. You guys seem to really like these a lot, and you usually get a little over 100 views, so I might as well keep doing them. But for this one's very special to me because this one's actually based off of another episode, a classic one, Tea at the Treedome by Tyler Collins, illustrated by Mark O'Hare. See, this is chapter 1 of many. You can see the back right here. SpongeBob is invited to have tea with a new karate chopping lady friend, Sandy Cheeks. But when he finds out that Sandy lives in a dome filled with air, SpongeBob's plan for a new friend might run dry. Look for other books about SpongeBob SquarePants at your favorite bookstore. Excuse me. You can see right here, Nickelodeon Stephen Hilbert's signature. You can see this was about $4 when it came out. And this actually is pretty old. This is one of my oldest, collectibles I have. This came out in 2000. So this, 1 year after SpongeBob, came out. See, we open it up. I do apologize if if you see this all along, here. I think dropped this in some kind of water and dried really weird, but still in pretty good condition. But yeah, let's open it up. See, obviously, let's actually take a look at the front of the cover. We got SpongeBob with flowers, with his pinky out. Same thing with Patrick. He's at the Treedome ready to meet Sandy to have, a nice little tea party. See, right here, the theme song. You can pause it, read it. Tea, Treedome. SpongeBob stepped up to the front door of the Treedome. The heavy door was made of thick steel, and it took all SpongeBob's strength to swing it open. Once inside, the sponge walked down a narrow hallway and faced the second door, identical to the first one, only this one was locked. He pressed the button of an intercom, and Sandy's voice came out of the speaker. "Hello," she said. "Who is it?" "Hi, Sandy, it's me, SpongeBob." "Hold on a second," Sandy replied from within. "I'll empty the airlock." Suddenly, a Calion horn started to honk. "Gah!" SpongeBob cried. "What's that?" He even became more worried than a red light began to flash. All of a sudden, the water began to go down the drain in the floor. As you can see, if we zoom in right here, you can see that this came out in copyright year of 2000, so this is pretty old. And we can see if this book was stolen or something, yada yada yada. Tea at the Treedome by Terry Collins, illustrated by Mark O'Hare, based on the original teleplay by Peter Burns, Mr. Lawrence, and Paul Tibbett. Well, with that being said, let's get into reading. Get another drink of water. So grab some snacks, some drinks, and let Mr. Water Filter read along. Chapter 1. Welcome to the sea. Beautiful, mysterious, and wet. It is here where the dolphins frolics and the electric eel slithers, where the shy octopus plays and the seahorse rides. But go further down, all the way to the bottom of the ocean. Here is a world entirely different from what we know on dry land. A strange world with different rules, funny customs, and unusual creatures. Wow, 4 stingers, a squeaky voice exclaimed as an angry jellyfish buzzed by. Buzz away, jellyfish. The yellow box-shaped character continued in his best dramatic voice. For soon you shall belong to SpongeBob SquarePants. Here, let's try like that. There we go. Whew! SpongeBob give a few practice swings with his net in preparation to capture his prey. Then he readied himself as the jellyfish came around for another pass. Buzz, said the jellyfish. SpongeBob buzzed back in his best jellyfish impersonation to lure him into his trap. Steady, he whispered, raiding his net. Steady. The jellyfish slowed down and hovered over a blue sea anemone. Yes! SpongeBob screeched, bounding out of the hiding and bringing down his net. The jellyfish avoided the attack and swam to the left. SpongeBob followed suit, swinging the net in a sideways arc, but somehow caught himself instead. Hanging in his own net, SpongeBob watched sadly as the jellyfish zipped home to Jellyfish Fields. Disappointed, SpongeBob continued to look for other jellyfish, but none were to be found. However, he did notice a funny-looking creature in a spacesuit wrestling a giant clam. SpongeBob did a double take. Spacesuit? Could it be space aliens? He wiggled out of his net and ran towards the scene. Upon closer inspection, SpongeBob saw that the spacesuit was actually a white high-tech diving suit. As for the clam, well, it was huge and mean. The spry fighter growled like a grizzly bear and used a combination of judo and karate, plus some moves SpongeBob had never even seen. And you can see they do like nice little like artwork right here from the actual episode, which you'll see that a lot in this book. Before to fight the flaring clam, the creature in the space helmet gave a final cry of triumph and caught the gray shell of the giant clam. It was this move that allowed SpongeBob to clearly see the fighter's face for the first time. Where have I seen this before? SpongeBob wondered. Reaching into his pocket, he took out his handy Barks Junior Field Guide. SpongeBob frantically flipped through the pages. Aha, he cried, finding a page with a picture of the being in a diving suit. However, in the field guide, a furry head was exposed. Land squirrel, SpongeBob read out loud. She's a land squirrel, whatever that is. Suddenly, the squirrel gave out a loud grunt of surprise as the clam bit her leg. That little squirrel is in trouble, SpongeBob announced. This looks like a job for SpongeBob. Excuse me. Chapter 2. SpongeBob hiked up his SquarePants and raced to the land squirrel's rescue. As he ran down the hill, he saw the squirrel jerk her leg free, gaining the upper paw. She began batting the clam like a loose penny in a supercharged washing machine. Take that, and this, and a mouth of that, the squirrel cried in a strong Texas accent as she sucked and stomped. There we go. The clam rocked back and forth, weakening from the attack. SpongeBob was fascinated. He'd never seen anyone like this squirrel person. Y'all need to learn some manners, the squirrel snorted as she picked up her enemy and headed above her head. SpongeBob closed his eyes in fear. The clam was 10 times bigger than that little land squirrel. If she dropped it, she'd be squished like a bug. SpongeBob opened his eyes just in time to see the feisty squirrel body slam the battered clam into the sand face first. There, she said, mean old clam. You know you're about as ugly as homemade soup. Hooray, land squirrel, SpongeBob cheered. He was amazed at what he had seen. He had to befriend this brave warrior. Just then, SpongeBob saw the giant clam wiggle like a worm on a hook, trying to pull itself from the suit and muck on the ocean floor. Look out, SpongeBob yelled, but his warning was too late. The monster clam was free and was heading for the land squirrel. The clam soared through the air and tumbled towards the unsuspecting squirrel. She never knew what hit her as the clam's mouth snapped shut like a bear trap, stabbing her inside. Hold on, little squirrel, SpongeBob yelled, his scrawny legs a blur as he raced to his new companion's rescue. To fight this foe, SpongeBob needs to call the to call on the discipline of karate. He struck a pose, one skinny arm cooked into the shape of a striking cobra. Ya, ha, ya, he shouted, using the battle cries of the karate master. You have fought well, Giant Clam, said SpongeBob, honoring his opponent. Prepare to be vanquished. First, he hopped onto his oversized enemy, then reaching down with both hands, SpongeBob gripped the stiff upper lip of the oversized clam and pulled with all of his might. SpongeBob grunted his teeth and gave a final Heroclin effort. An effort so great the snap of his SquarePants popped off. SpongeBob grabbed it, and then the mouth of the mammoth clam began to inch open with a creaking sound. SpongeBob was so amazed he nearly let go. Hey, he said in disbelief, I'm actually doing it. What SpongeBob could not see was the land squirrels pushing the clam's giant jaws open from inside. Ha! The squirrel snarled from behind the glass of her helmet as she struggled to free her. Ya, 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 ya! As the clam bucked like an angry bull, SpongeBob was tossed into the air. The squirrel hopped out of the clam's mouth and landed on her feet, ready for more action. But before she could make a move, SpongeBob re-entered the fray. Your shell is mine, he said determinedly as he grabbed the giant's muscular tongue. The squirrel gasped in surprise. Right before the clam's mouth slammed shut, trapping the heroic SpongeBob inside. Chapter 3. Hold on there, little square dude, the squirrel cried. I'm a-comin'. She flipped the clam up like she was tossing a coin. When it landed, the fighting squirrel then moved on some of her expert karate moves. Yeah, she cried, unleashing a karate chop. Ha! She added, uncoilingly a karate kick. Hi-ha! She finished, unspooling a series of master moves, making the clam spin like a top. The clam's mouth fell open, and a dazed and confused SpongeBob straggled out. What happened? SpongeBob asked, dizzy from the wild ride inside the Moloch. The squirrel stomped on the edge of the clam's lip like her boot and stood up on one end. She then proceeded to spin the shelled creature like a top, punching and grabbing at a rapid pace before delivering a final uppercut that sent the clam sailing up and far away towards the forbidden lands of Jellyfish Fields. Howdy, the squirrel said, looking down at SpongeBob. Hey, SpongeBob said brightly. You like karate too? The squirrel obligated by assuming the pose of the swooping crane. Awesome. So what's your name? SpongeBob asked. Sandy, she said. Sandy Cheeks. Sandy leaped up and went through a series of karate stances. What do you call yourself? She asked as she moved across the ocean floor. SpongeBob grinned and ran towards a curved wall. I'm SpongeBob, he yelled as he ran up the wall, executed a perfect backflip, and landed on a 45-degree angle on the corner of his head directly in front of Sandy. Well, SpongeBob, take a gander at this, Sandy announced, leaping over to a rock the size of SpongeBob's pineapple home in Bikini Bottom. Closing her eyes, Sandy summoned up all of the inner strength. And without a sound, she gave a massive boulder a single karate chop. All was still, then the rock began to vibrate, sending ripples through the water. The rock continued to shake, finally exploding into a million tiny pieces that scattered in all directions. A stray pebble bounced off of SpongeBob's forehead. Ow, he said, dumbfounded at the little squirrel's amazing display of karate. Snapping out of his tray, SpongeBob tried to act unimpressed. Oh yeah, he said narkily. Watch this. SpongeBob raised his arms, and then, faster than the eye could follow, stick his right hand into the groove of his left armpit. Observe, he said, and he pumped his left arm up down. Brap, brap, brap. Sandy fell back on her tail with an uncontrollable case of the giggles. After regaining her composure, she gave SpongeBob a playful chop at the top of his square head. I like you, SpongeBob. We could be tighter than bark on a tree. SpongeBob leaped up, copying Sandy's karate move and chopping on her glass helmet she wore. I like you too, Sandy. Hi-ya, bonk. Yow, SpongeBob cried, his tiny yellow hand aching from the mock bow. What is that thing on your head anyway? Why, that's my air helmet, she replied, knocking the thick glass with her knuckles. Neat, SpongeBob said. May I try on? Sandy laughed. Heck no, she said. I need to breathe. I gotta have my air. Not wanting to be left out of a good thing, SpongeBob announced. Me too. I love air. Air is good. The squirrel looked at SpongeBob in shock. No kidding, she asked. SpongeBob flashed Sandy, his most confident grin. No kidding, he said. Truth be told, SpongeBob wasn't sure what this air was. But if his new friend liked it so much, why, he was sure air had to be a most excellent thing. Chapter 4. By the way, there's I think a total of 61 pages. So we're almost there. Almost halfway done. Yep. Air's my middle name, SpongeBob said, sticking his hands in his pockets and rocking on his knees. The more air, the better. Can't wait to get enough of that air. Yeah, let's do that. There. Sandy clapped her paws together with delight. Sweet! Shoot! That's great! SpongeBob blushed and smiled. He was starting to love this air stuff. Sandy reached into a pouch of her diving suit and took out a sheet of paper and a pencil. Scribbling quickly, she handed SpongeBob a freshly drawn map to her place. How about coming over this afternoon to my Treedome for tea and cookies then, she said. How does 3 o'clock sound? Super, SpongeBob said. He was so excited his body started to float, allowing his feet to elevate above the ocean floor. Well, I gotta mosey on back, Sandy said, turning to go. Now don't be late. Okay. See you later, SpongeBob said, waving goodbye. He continued to float, watching and waiting until Sandy disappeared. Then panic struck. Patrick! 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 SpongeBob yelled. As he raced home, turning around the corner, he jogged past his orange pineapple home, past the tiki-head lair of his neighbor Squidward, and approached a huge rock at the other end of the street. Patrick, SpongeBob called. Patrick! Taking a nap on top of the rock was a pudgy pink starfish in blue Hawaiian shorts. This was Patrick Star, SpongeBob's best friend. Patrick, wake up! SpongeBob called as he bounced with glee. What's air? Patrick lifted up his green sunglasses and peered down at SpongeBob. Huh? He yelled with a yawn. Yeah, it made me yawn. What's air? What's going on? SpongeBob stood tall and announced, well, I just met this girl and she invited me to a tea party and way to go, SpongeBob. The starfish interrupted, giving his buddy a hearty thumbs up. SpongeBob returned the thumbs up. Thanks, but get this. She wears a hat full of air. A hat full of hair? Patrick asked. No, air. Air, SpongeBob corrected. Patrick's wide smile turned into a look of confusion. He puzzled over SpongeBob's statement for a moment and finally asked, Do you mean she puts on airs? SpongeBob shrugged his skinny shoulders. I guess so. Patrick slid down the rug and stood in front of his pal. No problem, he said. Putting on airs is just fancy talk. If you want to be fancy, I can help. Really? SpongeBob said. Sure, Patrick replied, holding one arm and sticking his finger out. Now, if you want to impress her, you just hold your pinky like this. The higher you hold, the fancier you are. SpongeBob lifted a crooked pinky. How's that? He asked. Higher, Patrick commanded, thrusting his own pinky into the sky. SpongeBob followed suit, sticking his pinky up as far as his pinky arm would reach. Like that? He asked in a pained voice. Patrick nodded. Now that's fancy. They should call you SpongeBob Fancy Pants. SpongeBob took out the map to Sandy's house and held it high above his head. Pinky extended. Ready, coach? Patrick rubbed his chin. Something's missing, he said. Looking over at Squidward's house, the hefty starfish spotted what he was seeking. Wait a sec, he said, bouncing across his neighbor's front yard. Squidward popped his head out of the second-story window. Stay off my lawn, you blob, he yelled in a whinny voice. That goes for you too, SpongeBob. Hi, Squidward, SpongeBob replied. I'm going to a tea party. Like I care, Squidward retorted and slammed his window shut. Patrick jogged back over and handed a bouquet of bubble-tip sea flowers to SpongeBob. I borrowed these from Squidward's house. Now, I don't actually think in the actual episode, Patrick actually took flowers from Squidward's house, but I think that was just a, addition to the book to make it more interesting. Said, can't go to a girl's house without flowers. SpongeBob slapped his square forehead with his hand. Duh, I should have known that. Patrick winked. That's what you got me for. As the two buddies left Bikini Bottom and made their way towards Sandy's Treedome, Patrick continued to lecture on the finer points of going to a tea party. Good manners are important, SpongeBob. The starfish said, you should say yes and no and thank you and please and never ever ask for anything unless your host offers it to you first. Yes, no, thank you, please, don't ask. Got it, SpongeBob replied. Sandy's map was easy to read, and soon enough, they were outside her bubble-shaped home. Patrick took up position outside the protective dome and gave SpongeBob a final prep talk. Remember, he said, when in doubt, pinky out. You can do it, SpongeBob. I'll be watching. Just remember, guys, from now on, when in doubt, pinky out. Chapter 5. SpongeBob stepped to the front door of the Treedome. The heavy door was made of thick steel, and it took all of SpongeBob's strength to swing it open. Once inside, the Sponge walked down a narrow hallway and faced a second door identical to the first, only this one was locked. He pressed the button of the intercom, and Sandy's voice came out of the speaker. Hello, she said. Who is it? Hi, Sandy, it's me, SpongeBob. Hold on a second, SpongeBob replied from within. I'll empty the airlock. Suddenly, a cackling horn started to honk. Gugh, SpongeBob cried. What's that? He became even more worried than a red light began to flash. All of a sudden, the water began to go down the drain and the floor. SpongeBob struggled with the door, but it would open. He began to wheeze. The flowers from Squidward's yard sagged in SpongeBob's hand. His body started to sag as well. SpongeBob felt lightheaded. His eyes bogged in their sockets as he started to cough. Sandy, open up, he screamed. Open the door, Sandy. The land squirrel swung open the steel door to her home. What's the rush, she asked. SpongeBob didn't answer as he fell to the ground on his feet, flopping like a goldfish out of his bowl. Flopping over onto his back, SpongeBob looked up at Sandy. Something's gone terribly wrong, he gasped. There's no water in here. Sandy helped SpongeBob to his feet. Of course there's no water, silly. But in here, nothing in here but air. Even as he felt his brain beginning to dry out, SpongeBob tried to focus on what Sandy was saying. No water, he wheezed. Nope, just good, clean Texas air, Sandy said. That ain't a problem, innit? SpongeBob gave the squirrel a ghastly grin as his brittle lips peeled back from his teeth. Problem? Heh, nope. Nothing wrong here. Yeehaw! Sandy cried, chopping the air as she practiced her karate. That's what I like to hear. We can work on our moves together. SpongeBob, his face still trapped in the awful smile, nodded in agreement. He wasn't sure what Sandy had said, without any water in his ears, weren't working properly. But he wasn't about to turn back now. Without the bulky diving suit, Sandy looked quite different. She had brown fur and was dressed in a pink polka dot bikini top and skirt. Yep, that's how I like my hair, SpongeBob said, taking a deep breath. Dry as dirt with no water. All right, Sandy cheered, doing a cartwheel. I made Texas tea and El Pasco Grand Hot Icy Cookies. That was pretty good if you ask me. Come on in, I'll give you the grand tour. She skipped across the grass, expecting SpongeBob to follow. But SpongeBob couldn't move. His legs were like baked clay and locked in place. Sandy glanced back over her shoulder. SpongeBob still had the same creepy smile, only more of his teeth were now showing on the skin on his face, continued to shine in the hot sun. You sure are a funny little dude, Sandy snorted as she hopped behind SpongeBob and pushed him towards the picnic table under her giant oak tree. Thank you, SpongeBob replied, as they sat down on the table. As his knees bent, they made loud popping noises, like firecrackers. So this is my own private little air bubble, Sandy said, chatting away. This air is the driest, purest, and most airest air in the whole dang sea. SpongeBob gasped in agreement. Sandy pointed to a bird bath made of stone. Oh, there's my bird bath. Inside the bird bath, an orange bird played happily in the water. Water! Never had that word sounded so beautiful to SpongeBob. Sandy babbled on, paying no mind to her guest's distress. That's my oak tree, she said, pointing up. It provides me with extra air. And SpongeBob ain't looking too good, as we can see. SpongeBob nodded once as he focused on the bird bath. The bird chirped happily, splashing as it bathed, throwing away precious, glimpsy drops of cool, wet water. This dome is made of polymethylene. Can't say that word, but whatever. That's a fancy name for plastic. Sandy continued, ain't that the bee's knees? Bob wheezed in agreement, waiting for his chance. He had to get into that bird bath before it was too late. Chapter 6. We are almost done. Y'all, we are almost done. The time for SpongeBob to make his move came. Then Sandy got up to check on her cookies in the kitchen. In a blur of speed, he leaped across the grass and sprang into the air, landing on his face in the center of the bird bath. Each and every inch of SpongeBob's body soaked in the precious water, leaving nothing but one angry, chattering bird. Then, like lightning, SpongeBob flew back to his position across from returning Sandy, who never knew he had left. Do you like my home? She asked. It's very nice, SpongeBob said, sounding like an old man on his throat, whining for more water. What he absorbed from the bird bath had been refreshing, but it was not enough. SpongeBob needed more water. Over there is my treadmill, Sandy said, pointing to her exercise equipment. That's how I stay in tip-top shape. Water? SpongeBob said in a faint burst of voice. You want something to drink? Glad to. Let's have that tea now, SpongeBob said, opening the door in the base of the oak tree. I'll roll down and grab us a pitcher. After Sandy left for the tree, SpongeBob heard a knocking sound. He turned and spotted Patrick outside the dome. Patrick, who was staying in the blue-green water in the ocean. Flowers, Patrick yelled, but SpongeBob could barely hear him through the thick polyagrathan of Sandy's Treedome. There we go. The starfish mind holding up the bouquet of sea flowers. SpongeBob looked down. His sea flowers were whining without water. There was something on my glasses. Kind of like SpongeBob himself. Come and get it, Sandy announced, bringing up the iced tea. I brought you some flowers. SpongeBob gasped. For little old me? How sweet, Sandy replied, reaching over to take the gift. SpongeBob's fingers looked like locked in place, dried like twigs around the stem of the flowers. Arrangement. Ugh, Sandy said, tugging away. Snap. Two of SpongeBob's fingers broke as Sandy retreated flowers. Sandy looked down at the fingers and peered closely at SpongeBob. The little yellow sponge was in sad shape. The water from the birdback was long gone. You okay? A concerned Sandy asked. Yes, I'm okay, SpongeBob replied. His raspy voice now sounded like an old straw broom sweeping across a wooden kitchen floor. Sandy wasn't sure, but she didn't want to embarrass her guests. You know, she said, trying to change the subject, you're the first sea creature to ever visit. I can't imagine why, SpongeBob said, coughing. Me neither, Sandy said, standing up with the flowers. I'm going to put these in a vase. Take your time. SpongeBob, poor SpongeBob. He is struggling. Oh, boy. That's such a good episode, though. The instant she was gone, SpongeBob lunged for the Treedome exit, but his legs were as stiff as dried leather. He could no longer bend his knees. I've got to get out of here, SpongeBob thought. Too hot, too dry. Must escape. Treedome, SpongeBob whispered. Must escape now. Chapter 7. SpongeBob imagined himself turning the knob to the heavy steel door and plunging into wonderful, slippery seawater. Just then, Sandy reappeared, holding a clear glass vase filled with the sea flowers. Why, these flowers are just beautiful, the scroll said as she set the vase down at the picnic table. And they'll live much longer in a vase of ice-cold water. I don't need it. SpongeBob thought to himself, repeating the phrase over and over, staring at the vase of flowers in front of him. A vase filled with water and cubes of ice. Ice water. SpongeBob felt like crying, but he was so dried out, he had no tears left. So tell me about yourself. It must be fascinating being a sea creature, SpongeBob said brightly, trying to make conversation. Some days are better than others, SpongeBob rasped. I can't imagine growing up under the ocean. I grew up in a wide open spaces where I could run and jump in the sun, Sandy continued, dreaming, letting her voice trail off. SpongeBob? She asked, waving a paw in front of his slack-jawed face. Ding! A bell went off from Sandy's kitchen. Oh, there's the cookies, she announced, running back to the tree. Be right back. I don't need it, SpongeBob whispered over and over again. God, even reading this, this is making my voice, like my throat, just dry from reading this and even watching from the episode. Does anyone ever feel that? Or, I don't know, maybe it's just me. But back to it though. Before him sat the vase. Beads of liquid condensation slid down one side of the glass. pulling at the bottom of the table. Silence. I need it! SpongeBob screamed, blasting off like a rocket into the hot Texas air. He shot straight up into the sky, bounced off the roof of the Treedome, and landed in a crouch next to the vase of water. Wheezing in triumph, he snatched the container and threw away the flowers. Picking up the vase in both hands, he was ready to guzzle. Knock, knock, knock. SpongeBob ignored the sounds. He knew that Patrick was watching this breach of social etiquette with an expression of sheer horror. No! The starfish yelled as he jumped up and down outside of the dome. Oh, man, this is not a good time for SpongeBob. SpongeBob managed to turn his dry, brittle neck and look at his friend. No, SpongeBob, no, stop. Pinky out. Pinky. Patrick cried in a frantic voice that was muffled by the thick plastic of the protective dome. SpongeBob didn't care. He grimly gulped down the soothing ice water. But the fearless vase full of water was not enough to quench his need for water. He was a sponge. Sponges need water, and lots of it. Everybody knew that. Air. Pooey. Bring on the liquid refreshment. SpongeBob ran to the exit, only to find that the way out blocked his best friend. What do you think? Where do you think you're going? Patrick asked. Slamming the steel door shut, Patrick picked SpongeBob up from the grass. What's wrong, little buddy? He said. I'm a quitter, SpongeBob sobbed. Patrick frowned. You can't leave now, SpongeBob. You'll blow it, he said. Air's not good, Patrick, he said in a defeated tone. Air is not good. Patrick tucked SpongeBob under one arm like an overdue library book and began the long walk back to the picnic table. You're just being shy, he said cheerfully. Don't worry, you're doing fine. Nope, not gonna let you blow this, Patrick continued. He gulped. Sandy's picnic table seemed a million miles away. Patrick tried to swallow, but his throat was dry as one piece of coral. Sure is hot in here, the starfish said, dropping SpongeBob and flopping down the ground. Two friends looked at each other. Gosh, SpongeBob, Patrick said, realizing his friend's problem for the very first time. You don't look so good, Patrick gasped. But not at SpongeBob's appearance. Suddenly he discovered it was getting very hard to breathe. His vision was blurring too, and then he wiped his brow. Patrick discovered his skin felt like it was made of sandpaper. What kind of a place is this? The starfish bellowed. The Treedome, SpongeBob answered slowly. Full of air. You mean there's no water in here? Patrick cried, crawling on his hands and knees towards the exit. We've got to get out of here. I tried to tell you, SpongeBob said as he crawled after Patrick. You wouldn't listen. I'm listening now. He got to his feet and pounded on the steel door and let out of the Treedome. Let us out. We need water. Together, Patrick and SpongeBob tried to open the door, but in their weakened condition, they couldn't budge it. Both friends slid to the grass, slumped in defeat. Looks like this is the end, old chum, SpongeBob said. Next time you get invited to a tea party. Next time you get invited to a tea party, Patrick replied, his voice trailing off. Yes, Patrick licked his dry lips. Count me out. Chapter 9. SpongeBob SquarePants was having the most pleasant dream. He was at the swanking beach party at Goo Lagoon, and all of his friends were there. Patrick was doing the limbo under a sea strong, and Mr. Krabs was busy cooking up a grill full of Krabby Patties. SpongeBob's new pal Sandy was lifting weights and impressing everyone with her astonishing strength. His pet snail Gary was off of one side, meowing happily as SpongeBob gave his pat on the head. Even grumpy old Squibber appeared to be enjoying himself as he played a jazz tune on his clarinet. Best of all, there was water everywhere. He gave a long sigh of relief. Water splashed to his left, and flowed to his right. SpongeBob opened his eyes. A familiar blue haze hung in front of his vision like a curtain. He smacked his lips. Something tasted wet. Could it be? Yes. It was water. Sweet water. Rise and shine, SpongeBob said. Y'all gave me quite the scare. You two dried up like beef jerky on a North Dakota blacktop. SpongeBob looked up and saw Sandy was standing on a ladder. She was holding a garden hose. A steady stream of water was pouring out the hose and onto the open tops of the glass. Oh, that looks like fun. They're having a good time, all right. Good old Sandy. Helmets that SpongeBob and Patrick were now wearing. I modified some of my old air helmets, Sandy said. Turns out they hold water just as good as air. SpongeBob stood up and stretched as Sandy finished filling his helmet. There, that ought to do it, she said, turning off the hose. How do you feel? Like a brand new sponge, SpongeBob replied. Me too, Patrick added. Well, maybe not like a sponge, but I feel brand new. SpongeBob looked down at the top of his sensible black shoes. He couldn't look at Sandy in the eye. I'm so sorry for all the trouble, he said. The squirrel laughed. Weren't no trouble. If y'all needed water, you should have asked. Yeah, SpongeBob, Patrick asked. You should have asked. SpongeBob glared at Patrick. As I recall, he said in a frosty tone, someone taught me asking for stuff at a tea bar was bad manners. Really? SpongeBob Patrick asked. What was that? Stepping off the ladder, Sandy fetched a tray with 3 glasses of home brewed Texas iced tea and a platter of cookies. Well, now that we're back to normal, let's have some goodies, she said. Everyone took a glass of tea. I propose a toast, Sandy announced, holding out her glass. To new friends. SpongeBob and Patrick agreed, tilting their glasses for a drink, and spilling the tea in front of their helmets. Hold on a second, Sandy said. I've got an idea. She climbed back up the ladder and dropped a tea bag into SpongeBob's and Patrick's helmets. Inside the glass containers, the water started to change color from pale blue into a lovely golden shade of brown. Drink up, Sandy announced. Ahem. Patrick cleared his throat. He then held up his pinky. SpongeBob giggled and held up his pinky too. Sandy shrugged. She was still getting used to the strange ways of these sea creatures. She also stuck out her pinky. Everyone took a long, cool drink of their tea and smiled. Ah, SpongeBob said. Delicious. And here's about the author. If you want to pause and read that, you can. Now, on the very back, we have other ones too. We got Hey Arnold, and we got these other ones. We got Nautical Neighbors. Here, let's actually zoom in right here. We have Hall Monitor. We got Joke Book and a Trivia Book. And we got, like other ones right here too, which I'll probably try to, collect in the future. So, yeah. Ooh, I need some water after that. So, yeah, everyone. That is Tea at the Treedome book. I may not be the best, reader when it comes down to, books like these. But you know what? They're honestly a lot of fun to read. Obviously this is based off of the actual episode. Probably I think from the pilot episodes, like Help Wanted and Reflower. And I think this was the 3rd part in the pilot series with the beginning of season 1. So yeah, if you want to try and get this book for yourself, good luck with that, because finding a good one like this and good quality is hard to find. And I do appreciate they put, artwork and, drawings in here, to show off, you know, like what the episode was really based off of. So that's really cool. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching today's video. This was a lot of fun to read, and I really like the art style that was put in here. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. If you like what you see here and you want to see, you know, more videos of me, you know, reading books like these in the future, then be sure to subscribe to my channel today. Click that bell notification so you'll stay notified when I make new videos. Like the video, comment what you think of it. Do you have this book or do you not? Did you actually watch the episode based off this book or something? Or, you know, like, if you know people who like SpongeBob, you know, share this with your friends, family, or whoever. And with that being said, I will see all of you people in my next video. Bye-bye!